It's not personal, it's just business. From time to time we hear this phrase tossed around, but sometimes it's more than just business. This is the story of the Skull Merchant. As a young man, Seda moved to Fortaleza, Brazil to experience a side of the world unknown to him. He was a passionate illustrator, spending his time designing colorful characters and worlds. One day, while sketching some clubgoers at a local jazz club, the owner would approach him. She needed a logo for the club. Seda gave her that, and then some. A couple years later, Adriana Amai would be born. Young Adriana was a child with a colorful mind thanks to her parents' background. She was also fiercely competitive. She always wanted to be the best at whatever she did. This drive meant she excelled in school, but she was often facing disciplinary action due to her violent behavior towards other kids. Her mother, Belinda, tried to keep her on the straight and narrow. Her father, however, was spending more and more time creating manga. Even though Seda worked long hours at a canning facility and creating fictional worlds in manga, he would still spend a little bit of time each night sharing his wild and highly imaginative illustrations with his daughter. Thanks to her abnormally high performance, Adriana would eventually go to a fancy private middle school. But this meant that her parents needed to come up with some serious cheddar. Seda managed to find a small local publisher for a manga he created, but it meant he would have to invest more time into it, ultimately costing him his job at the canning facility. During Adriana's final semester, the publishing company decided to cut her father's manga series. Unable to afford the school fees, Adriana was pulled from the elite academy. She was able to graduate, but another student was able to take her place at the head of the class. Adriana did not like this, not one bit. That summer, she stalked her rival. She learned where he lived, hung out, what he did in his spare time, everything. Ultimately, she would not act on this one. But something awakened within her, and she felt like the anti-hero in a new story her father had been writing. Around this time, Seda retreated further into himself. He began working on a newer, darker manga, inspired by his visions and nightmares. He envisioned a woman who hunts and guts the weak in a nightmarish realm, using fabricated drones made out of salvaged skulls. Sonhadores Sombrios, which translated from Portuguese meant Dark Dreamers, would be its title, but he was unable to sell it. Knowing her family's financial hardships, Adriana began to look for ways to make money. She would strike gold after creating a website dedicated to the world of Brazilian manga. As soon as she got an offer for the site, she grabbed the money and ran. She came home to show her parents the check, but her father would never see the check, as he had walked out that morning, assumingly to purchase milk and cigarettes. All he left behind was a stack of unpublished manuscripts about the Skull Merchant. Adriana would go on to find ways to support her and her mother. She invested the money she earned into small companies, gutted the companies, and then sold at a profit. The only break she would take from her corporate obsession would be to immerse herself in her father's manuscripts, trying to understand the chilling world he had created. But on her path of consuming as many companies for profit as she could, she would be faced with competition that was just as hungry as she was. When the competition would do just enough to push her over the edge, she would obsess about thinking of ways to hurt them. She would learn everything about them, stalk their every move. The last straw that would seal her fate in this story would be with two members of a board who blocked her sale on a real estate firm. Inspired by the Skull Merchant, she tracked them with a prototype drone and brutally dismembered them with a cruel two-bladed weapon. The rush was unlike anything she had ever felt before. This would begin the vicious cycle of her swooping in on a business and destroying anyone who got in her way. Adriana's last target would be an aggressive manager of a fireworks company, known for his survival tours. These survival tours would be a perfect cover for Adriana. She lured him into a decommissioned airship hangar right in her home of Brazil. Just like she hunted the two board members in the Alps, she used her drones to locate him. She then used one of her drones to direct him to a dead end when suddenly a pair of kites appeared on camera and then the feed died. Adriana slammed the laptop that she was using shut and charged towards the location where the drones had crashed. She found the manager she was hunting, but she also found two kids whose kites were in the path of her drone, witnesses. Without a second to lose, she plunged her blade into the manager, sending a shower of red over the green foliage. As she zeroed in on the young witnesses, Adriana gave chase into the trees, her blades thirsting for more blood. As she entered the forest, the lush green of the trees melted into a thick black fog. Real life warped into something like Sonhadores Sombrios. A sick grin crept across her face as she rushed forward to begin a new chapter in her life.